All right, it's 2:03, and we got a lot of folks joining in today. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Welcome to the Nautilus Notes. We get together every month to talk about what's going on in the Squid technical community. This is a chance where we can share lessons that are learned. We can hear what our partners and customers are up to. And this is something that we do internally at Squid every week. And we thought it would be good for us to do it with the broader Squid technical community as well. Because when you learn those lessons, we don't want it to stay locked up with one person. If we can share it, can all get better together. And it's always great to see what's going on. It's just, it's exciting. So this is our format. We've got a doc that I'm going through here and have yet to figure out how we're going to actually surface the document that we do upload the recordings every time we do this. But I'm going to display, show my screen. So you should be seeing my screen. We'll walk through here and we'll hear from a number of SEs and we'll hear from one of our customers about some cool things that are happening. All right, my name is Matt Brown. I am a solutions architect here at Squid. I'm going to be the host for today. Carl, say hi, Carl.
Hey, everybody.
Is going to be our referee. He has the time turkey, and do we have a name for the frog?
Pierre.
Pierre.
Pierre the frog.
Pierre the frog. All right, awesome. So we'll try to keep it moving. We've got a couple of segments that we do every time, and then a couple of special things as well. So let's go ahead and jump in. First up, what's going on at Squid? So this is something that we do every week. We have the New to Squid webinar, and we'll just encourage you to go and register for that. If you are brand new to Squid, which if you're on Nautilus Notes, chances are you're not completely brand new to Squid, but maybe you are. And New to Squid is a great way to just dive in. We take 30 minutes and go through the basics of building a page, getting into the app, some things to be aware of. And I know we've started to get a pretty good regular group of folks there. So if you're learning, or if you've got someone that you want to learn Squid, that's a great place to go and dive in. So go ahead and go there and register, and I will go ahead and put that link in the chat. So that's New to Squid. That's every week on Wednesdays at 11 o'clock. Let's see. A couple weeks ago, we did a deep dive on field properties, and we did record that. That's up on the YouTube page. We took an hour and went into a ton of features that Squid has when it comes to how fields look and behave in your apps. There's just a lot of cool functionality there. And then we've got a couple webinars coming up. So if you want to see overall everything that's coming down the pipe on the Squid webinar front, you can just go to squid.com, and then I believe it's under resources and webinars. You can see what is scheduled. We've got a couple of things that are coming up this month. Our virtual build an app workshop is a great place to go and see essentially a use case built out from start to finish. And that's coming up on September 18th. And then there's a Squid dive on September 25th, which will be an hour looking specifically at Squid models. Michael Bernazzoli, our pre-sales solutions engineer, is going to be leading that. That's going to be really cool. Yeah, I'm excited for that. So please go and register for that. And I will actually, this is another one that, oh, that's a super long URL. Well, I'm sorry. I'm just going to go ahead and put it in the chat anyways. But go and register for that. That's going to be really, really cool. Okay, so that's what we've been doing and what's coming up. Last thing I want to point out is that, again, Dreamforce is coming up in November. We've got 30 squids from the squad that will be there, and we are really excited about that. So if you're going, please let us know. We'd love to connect with you when we go. All right, first poll of the day. We do 2 polls every time just to see what you, our technical community, think about things, because that helps us do things like work on our product, make our product better, support you better with the types of content that we put together. So the question that we want to ask today is what group of Salesforce products and features do you primarily support in your organization? So Salesforce has a lot of different aspects to their product. There is the Sales Cloud with the standard objects. You've got Service Cloud, Marketing Cloud. There's you can build apps without any of those standard objects, just using complete custom objects. And we know that a lot of folks do that as well. So portals, communities, or something that's just completely out there that we're not thinking of here. So please let us know what you're doing. We'd love to know that. That'll help us continue to support you better. All right, let's go ahead and keep moving. Quote of the month comes from Jackson Stone on our engineering team regarding the hit computer game Factorio, which is all about building a highly efficient assembly line and complex machines. And he says, I call it programming the game because your worst enemy is your own past decisions. So anyone that has ever worked on a product for an organization, whether you're building it with custom code or you're building it with Skuid, has to deal with the same thing. You have to deal with your own past self. And actually, like, Zach, that was kind of one of the reasons why you guys built Skuid in the first place. I think from hearing you talk about it, was that ability to go back in 2 years or have someone come in that had never seen it before and be able to say, oh, that's a model that connects to this piece of data, as opposed to having to search through a tangle of custom code. So Skuid tries to make that easier, but you can still do some harm to yourself if you don't build as much as you can around best practices. So yeah, anyways, I thought that was a funny quote, and it's a fun game too. So a little bit of free advertising for Factorio there. Okay, so each week we like to highlight a feature about Skuid that maybe you didn't know about, or maybe it's actually coming, or it's just a core part of the Skuid product that's available out of the box. So this isn't advanced customization that you have to do with JavaScript. This is something that's just available in Skuid. And this week we want to talk about conditional styling. So what do we mean by conditional styling, Zach and Rob?
That's a great question, Matt. So I think it's a feature that people have asked for a long time, and like before even we had V2, was just the ability to have different components conditionally styled different ways. There's a whole litany, as you're showing up, of different community posts that people have asked for over the years. And the way that we decided to approach that in V2 was to implement, first of all, something called style variants. And that's something that you define in your design system studio for your for your particular design system. So good example of that would be buttons in a button set. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen.
Yeah. We'll stop.
Show that.
You go ahead.
So yeah, if you have different buttons in a button set, you might have a destructive button, which is like a red, like this is going to be an action that's going to have a deletion effect or something like that. You might have buttons that are just kind of normal, like a utility button, a green button for like a action to create something. So we wanted to make it so that you define all of the actual styling in a consistent manner. That's what we implemented the Design System Studio and the concept of design systems. But then with that in place, we were able to have conditional style variant application become another new feature we added, where on a particular component, you could define logic whereby you would apply certain style variants in certain situations, such as based on data in your model. You could have one card in a deck be styled differently, or you could have different buttons be styled differently based on some setting somewhere else on the page. So that's kind of that's kind of the two pieces of it, is we wanting to maintain the actual styling and design in its place, but then have the logic for when to apply a particular variant be defined within your page, in much the same way that you have for just display logic, whether to show or hide something, or showing or enabling a button. So that's kind of what the background of that is. So just want to go through some examples of what that looks like. So here in this page that I'm showing, that's actually what's going on. We have these, this is a button. This is actually a field in a form component being rendered as a button group.
Oh, and just to shout out, that's a really, really cool feature.
Which is also
Display pick list
Yeah.
as a button group. Really cool thing in V2.
And then when we're selecting a different value, so this is really tied to just a UI only field that has the values of destructive, borderless, utility, just values in the pick list. Whenever we click that, we're conditionally applying a different style variant to this button. So let's go take a look at what it looks like in the page composer. Here we've got our button set. Here's our button. And then when we go to the display logic tab, we'll expand this. We've got render conditions, enable conditions like we have in the past that you're probably familiar with. But we also have this new area in V2 called style variant conditions. And this is what achieves conditional styling. So basically what happens is there's like a cascade, it just goes through. Squid goes through and says, if it finds a rule that matches, it will use that rule and then it will stop. If it doesn't, then it moves on and looks for another rule and it will try to use that one if that works. So here we're saying, we're just kind of defining them in an order. So based on this field in our model, we have just a model over here, and it's got a field called variant changer with different values. If it looks at it and says it's borderless, so if it matches these conditions, then we're going to go apply this particular style variant. They just happen to be all named the same for the purposes of this this demo. But these are pulling in style variants from our design system. So that's what. Let's go back up to the page properties here. We've got this design system that we're using. There's a lot of design systems in this org. But I'll pull that up. But all of those variants are defined in the design system, and then we're just conditionally applying them based on data in our model. So let's go back over here. Oops, not that. Here. Here we can do that on all different types of components. So for instance, we can apply a different header style. Here's body, makes it look a little smaller. There's a default variant where it's kind of big. Here we can have like dark text versus light text for the text within a wrapper. So it's very powerful, and you can do this within items within say a deck or a list. You could have different items conditionally styled to show different. To highlight, that's a common use case, like highlight one item in the list. You can just have a different style variant applied based on whether it has like a status is, important or escalated, something like that, have a different variant. So we're super excited about that, and I think it's going to be, really powerful. Previously you could do things like having CSS with conditional CSS stuff. It was pretty hard and convoluted to achieve in V1. We wanted to make a nice, clean way to have the design defined in one place and the logic defined in your page.
That is hugely useful. And if anyone has ever built out 3 versions of the same component to conditionally render one, just so that you could get a different look and feel, on behalf of those people, thank you. That includes me in many, many apps that I've built. That is awesome. Thank you for showing that. That's really exciting. So that is available when?
So Skuid platform, that's already available.
Already in Skuid platform.
And in Salesforce, that's also
It's going to be coming 12.2.
12.2. Yeah.
12.2, which is coming.
I've got a very small product update today. Don't take
Okay, got it. We'll say it later. Right.
I'll be talking.
You gotta save it.
Seconds.
You gotta save it. Yeah, no,
No.
that's good. That's good. More on that as the story develops.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Awesome. Yeah. So conditional styling, or what are we calling it? Style variant conditions. That's great. And again, that goes in the component properties. Every component has those render conditions and enable conditions, or a lot of them have enable conditions. And again, that really helps simplify what is in your page by being able to only show what you need when you need it. So that's really exciting. Good stuff. All right. One note: if you have questions as we go, there is Q&A. in your Zoom console. You can use that to ask questions, and we'll try to answer that as we go. So feel free to ask us questions. And then there's also the chat, which is can anyone post in chat?
Yeah,
Cool.
post in chat.
And that's just the Wild West. It can be fun, but also a lawless place. All right. So moving on, we want to I wanted this time for Nautilus Notes, I wanted to do kind of a roundup of a lot of little things or smaller things that we've learned, specifically around two kind of areas. One, with Skuid and Lightning. If you've been in Salesforce for a while, then you've been in Lightning for a while. And Lightning is really cool. It adds a lot of functionality, and there's also some quirks to working with it, and it helps just to know what's out there. So I wanted to dig into that, and then also some kind of admin dev tools and tips and tricks for Skuid builders, and wanted to highlight those and share those all together and look at those. So let's go ahead and look at a couple things in Lightning that we have been interacting with over the past year or so. Yeah,
Share your screen.
share my screen. That's important. Yeah.
Thank you.
There we go. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Time Turkey. It's like a superhero. All right. So first thing is something that we've run into with navigation in Lightning communities. And so you can use Skuid with Visualforce or with Lightning. It works well in both of those scenarios. Are you just keeping me on track over there, Carl?
Yeah,
Thank you. Thanks. So you can use Skuid well in Visualforce and Lightning. There's going to be use cases for both. And Salesforce has Visualforce communities and they have Lightning communities. And in Lightning communities, one of the things that we realized was that the navigation required a little bit of extra work. And specifically, we had to use a JavaScript snippet to help facilitate that. Jared, do you want to speak a little bit to what we ran into there?
Sure thing. So yeah, essentially Lightning really likes overriding URLs, overriding links in pages, and that works to our detriment in Lightning communities. And so the standard go to URL action in our action framework does have some trouble. So this is the snippet that we use. We are missing something from this documentation here, though. Is the snippet is actually expecting to be run from an action sequence. What we typically do is set up an action sequence, a reusable action sequence called navigate. It expects a single input called URL, and you can actually see that in that if statement there. You back up to the left a little bit there.
Oh, sorry.
No problem. Yeah, so it's expecting URL as an input parameter to that action sequence. And the action sequence turns around and calls this JavaScript snippet. So you can then use that reusable action sequence exactly the same way that you would with the go to URL. Now, a little bit of something. We were trying to reproduce this yesterday in latest version of Skuid, and it was working. So like the actual go to URL.
Oh, you didn't need to do the JavaScript.
So
this may be
possible that this is fixed in one of the very recent.
Well, the other thing is, I'm looking at the Winter 20 release notes, and Salesforce is talking about letting you navigate directly to URLs in Lightning in Winter 20. So,
Yeah.
so this may not be necessary at that point.
All right.
And I mean, who knows? It's possible that even Lightning has fixed it. It may not have even been anything that we did.
cool.
But anyways, just know that at least in older versions of Skuid, prior to 12.1, whatever,
Yeah.
we still had to do this. But this has been a reliable fix for that issue. And,
Paul McInar from LeanCog, one of our partners, points out that he ran into the issue in mobile as well, and it may still be there.
Mhm.
So just a heads up, and this may be helpful if it's something that you hit. Okay, moving on. This is something that we hit in a nonprofit donor portal was interacting with files and wanting to see files. So a lot of the time, you might have attachments that the user wants to preview or go look at. And this uses the newer version of how files work in Salesforce now with the content document and content document link objects. So Jer, high level, what did we hit here and how do we solve it?
The issue that we hit was that this URL to actually serve up a content document from Lightning Communities is really obscure. No one anywhere, I mean, I don't even remember how we stumbled on it anyways, but it was, we couldn't find it in, like, Googling it. All of the examples that we had were
Secret knowledge.
for Lightning Experience, not Lightning Communities.
We had to break into the Illuminati's headquarters to
Yes.
get this
It
URL.
was a tough job, but we did it.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is really how you serve up a content document. Now, actually arriving at that content document ID is going to vary a little bit depending on the object you're approaching it from. But yeah, know that once you have found that ID, this URL ought to work. Now,
And yeah, go ahead.
it should be noted that it does not do a preview for this file. It will just simply download it.
Okay.
And that's something that Salesforce controls. It's not something that we can control. But yeah, it will download it. It does not use the Lightning's file preview or anything like that. It's just gonna serve up the file for you.
Okay, cool. And I want to point out two things because content document has a versioning in it as well. So we are getting the latest version of the document, I think is the field that we're pulling in there. The other thing I want to point out is the site prefix merge value that's going into the URL. So whenever you put in URLs in Skuid, you always want to make them relative URLs instead of hard coding everything. And when you're working in communities and public sites, you can use the site prefix merge value to construct your URL there. So that's what we're looking at, and that is in our docs, the site prefix, I believe, right?
The
Yes.
on site.
Yeah. Mhm.
That's documented.
It's essentially an absolute URL, but it's one that will work in your dev and prod and all of your environments.
Cool.
But yeah, site prefix is going to give you, if you don't have, that's like on a per community, you can set up a prefix or not. So some communities have no prefix.
Oh, okay.
So if it's something like it might be /partners, like /customers, something like that. So it's like a relative prefix that gets thrown at the beginning of any other URLs you use.
Okay, got it. That's helpful. Okay, a couple other things. This is something that I think hit Chris Stern with something he was working on. And we have, it's in one of our example docs, underneath our force.com sites doc, basically. And there's a section there of describing some of the settings that you need to set up. And so sometimes you need to do this. I think it really depends on what your default settings are. But if for some reason you're not seeing what you think you should be seeing in communities, this is something that you can go through and it'll take you through and make sure that everything's set up the way and configured the way it needs to be. All right, I'm going to keep blazing on through Lightning file upload. So you may have gotten an error message. I guess it would have been a couple months ago. If you were trying to use file upload in Lightning, it would say, hey, you hit the size limit of what you can put in here. This was something that got pushed out, released in Skuid, was the ability to use Lightning's file uploader so that you won't hit those. And we'll talk a little bit more about file upload in a little bit. But that's something that is a new property in Skuid. It's a checkbox. As of, I think, 1 or 2 quarters ago, but it's just something to be aware of if you're doing file uploads.
Well, and then they default that one.
Yeah,
Release.
yeah.
I think so.
And there is, if you are using Skuid v1 pages in Lightning, you can't put that file upload, that Lightning file upload in a pop-up. And part of the reason for that is because it's got its own set of modals and confirmations that it uses. But you can do it in V2, is what we've got here in our docs. So something to be aware of. Last thing I want to point out is Skuid has the ability to publish events without code. It's one of our action types. You have event triggered action sequences, and one of the actions that you have is to publish an event. And that is going to be one way that you can have Skuid pages talk to each other. So you can have two Skuid pages in a Lightning page. You could have Skuid page 1, Skuid page 2, standard Lightning component, custom Lightning component, and you want all of those things to talk to each other. And with Skuid, Skuid can listen and publish those events to have those pieces all integrated with each other. That's going to be really, really helpful to you. And that is in our docs. That's going to be useful for you, even if you're not a coder and you're not building, custom, Lightning web components, but you still want to be able to have things talk to each other with multiple Skuid pages. That can be really helpful. But if you are a developer and you are building Lightning web components, we have some docs on how to do event handling so that Skuid can integrate well with your custom components and those standard components as well. So, okay. So there's obviously a lot more that you can do and many more things to know about Skuid and Lightning, but wanted just to give a quick roundup of some lessons that we've been learning. Okay, poll number 2. Here we go. We'd like to know a little bit about the use cases that you guys are building with Skuid. And so we'd like to ask what types of Skuid pages are bringing the most value to your organization. So we've got, you can select multiple here. So we'd like to know what are the really common use cases that you're using Skuid to build with. All right, and while you're doing that, let's keep on rolling. Yeah, Carl?
We're sitting pretty good on time.
We're doing pretty good on time? All right,
We're getting
awesome.
pretty good at this.
All right, yeah, number 4.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so we build a lot of Skuid pages here at Skuid. We've got SEs that are building Skuid pages, SAs that are building Skuid pages, pre-sales engineers that are building Skuid pages, and once you've built a number of Skuid pages, there are some things that become shortcuts. There are some things that you go looking for, and wanted to give another roundup of some tools and tips that are helpful on the admin side and on the dev side. As an intro, the first thing that you should know, if you're a developer, this is old hat, but if you're someone like me and not coming from a code background, things like the dev console in the browser are really scary. And it takes some work to make them not scary, but they really aren't. And I wanted to point out one really, really common thing that we do, which is get to the model data in our page in the dev console. And if you've never done this before, it's as simple as clicking inspect, and then you get the option to go to your dev console here. And if you type in squid.model.map.
Hey, Matt, can you do squid.debug.models instead so that it works for both V2 and V1 pages?
Oh, yeah. Is that a good
Not
one?
debugs, debug.
Debug, just Squid debug.
Okay.
There often are multiple bugs, but in this
Yes.
case,
Yeah. All right. Do I have to do the parentheses?
Parentheses.
All right. And what? Good?
Good to go.
All right. Whoa, I found the Squid's debug tool.
You found it.
That is so exciting.
Lost.
Notice, don't put this in any snippets. That's the
Okay.
TLDR on that box.
Got it.
We will change it all the time and break stuff on purpose.
So, can I get to my model information in
Yeah,
here?
well, yeah.
Cool.
Why didn't that? Yeah, see, it's already broken.
Yeah, I'm just gonna go back to what I know. Anyways, so at least in V1, I know there's cool things in V2 to do this as well. But the point is that in the dev console you can get to all of your data and what's in your page, and did this condition actually get turned on, so on and so forth. So that can be really, really helpful. There's also a couple of extra steps to do if you're going to do that in Lightning, and that is here in our docs as well. And so those are pretty common things. But then on top of that, we have folks like Math Davis and Solid Jer working on a couple of power-ups to help you in your quest of debugging your pages. So Matt, talk to us about model history and getting to your list of fields in your Skuid pages. Are you there?
You have to.
I got you. You might be muted.
You can't unmute yourself.
He should be
Should be able to unmute himself.
presenter. Unmute.
And you should unshare if you're gonna.
Uh-oh.
Oh, you got off and someone.
Nope. There we go.
There
Matt.
we go. Yep,
Hey.
we got it.
We got
All
it.
right. Let me.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead and share your screen.
Yep, you got it. Let's share that. All right, cool. Apologies for the noise ahead of time because there's some construction going on outside. So, first one is model histories. So the idea here was, while I refresh this page, there's times where I like to kind of keep track of what's going on with the model, like when is it being queried, what's changing as it's getting queried, and things like that. So I have a snippet on this, or inline, bit of code on this page that adds a model history property to each model, and then whenever it is queried, stores some data in it. In this case, I'm just storing the time it was queried and the sockle when it was queried. So like, for example, if we use what Matt said, Squid model map, and go to, there's 3 models on this page that I created: Opportunity, Opti1, Opti2, because I'm creative. This doesn't normally exist, but now there's a model history that tells me when I loaded this page, this model was queried, and this is what the sockle looked like. And then if we go to like Opportunity 2, this one I didn't have load on page. And the model history doesn't have anything because it hasn't been queried yet. Whereas if I do things like Opportunity 1, I'm going to set a condition on it. Then let's look at that one specifically. We can see the model history should have both of them, including the new one, and it shows like, hey, the sockle changed. So, I know if it's showing different records now, this is the reason why. And that just saves some time from actually going into conditions and things like that to troubleshoot when you run into problems with super complicated pages.
Basically, it all comes down to the question, am I insane? And you want to be able to answer it negatively.
Exactly. And yeah, that's more or less it. It's
Cool.
a simple snippet.
Now, this is not on Squid Labs yet, right?
Not yet. I want to generalize it a little bit more, and then I'll put it on Squid Labs.
All right.
Same for the next one.
Yeah. What's next?
So what's next is, I'm going to go over here. And this one is, if you ever had the need for getting all the fields in a specific page, like I usually run into this when we're spinning up new pages with some new objects, and you need to create new permission sets or new profiles accordingly. You kind of want to know exactly all the fields a page is using. So what this does is, this is one of those ones that I'm just throwing in the console and then I'll run it. And it's going through the Squid model, get model list. It's going through this guy to get all the models, and then it'll run through each model and get all the fields on each model along with the object the field is on. So for example, it looks something like this, what it's outputting, which this is the array form, so not the prettiest, but here's all the fields I'm using on account and so forth. But then more realistically, if I'm creating this list, no one wants to see this. They want to see the actual, Excel file, because that's what everyone's used to. So I would copy, this is a different variable, but it looks similar. I go over to Excel, paste it in here, and then I'm just going to not format data, split text to columns. It does its thing.
Man.
And then now I can send someone, here's the list of all the fields that the page is using. And it handles, these ones are the who ID and what ID, so that's why it looks funny from tasks. So
You're getting some major respect nods from Carl, our Excel lord,
yep.
right now. So well done. Yeah, that's awesome. And I want to point out one of the reasons why this is important is because Squid, if you're new to Squid, Squid runs 100% within the user's permissions in Salesforce. And so if you want the user to be able to see a field in Squid or to be able to edit a field, that is going to be 100% dependent on the security model in Salesforce. And so, and that's true of any data source, whether it's Salesforce or SQL or REST or whatever it is that you're pulling from. The user has to have access to those fields in order for them to be able to see them. And so this can be helpful when your admins are set, making sure that the users have access to everything that they need. Awesome. Okay, and then Jer, talk to us about action logging. Is that like a lumberjack?
Yes, exactly.
I'm an action logger.
So,
So that's okay.
And I'm okay.
Not a passive logger.
Right.
so plenty of times we run into issues attempting to, or just being confused as to what's getting pushed into actions as far as, what's the context at this point? How far is the action framework going? What branch did it veer off into with the branch actions and things like that? So one of the things that I wanted to put together was the ability to log the actions as they happen in much the same way you can put console log in your snippets, just to be able to see what's going on when and all of that stuff. So this is actually up in Squid Labs as of today. Woohoo! And it is a.
Try this. You need to be louder.
All right. Also, we're muted.
No, it blinks when it's muted.
It's very
It's
confusing.
a red light when it's working and a blinking red light when it's not.
I guess that's, all right.
Yeah.
A little confusing having that there.
User interface design.
They
Yep.
make great microphones, though.
So this is in the snippets, and added a new folder, debugging / action framework. And so that is this guy here. And what I'm going to do is actually paste this into a new JavaScript inline, not an inline snippet, but an inline. Call it action logging. And just replace everything that's in there with the stuff that we've added. Now what you'll see is this is somewhat production safe because it doesn't do anything at all until you've actually added a page parameter to the page. So we can run actions and nothing shows up in our debugger, in our console rather, until we add action log level as a page parameter. Action log level 1 will output essentially the XML node of that particular action. If you've ever been into the page XML, this is going to look pretty familiar to you. So this is the XML for that particular action node output, and we've got 2 actions that are being fired with the when clicking on new op. And so that might be helpful. But to get a little bit more, we can set our action log level up to 2. I could do that.
Can you
leave the
zoom in on one on the runtime and the other?
on the runtime?
Yeah.
There isn't. Whoa.
Like
Here.
just unshare and then share that or that. Cool. It was just looking a little small.
Got it.
I know it doesn't look that way to you, but with your superhero eyes.
So, okay. So now we got action log level 2, and what you'll see is we've still got that that XML node, but we also have, zoom in a little bit here. We also have the arguments that are being passed into that action. So new op actually has a, let's see here, where is it? New op actually accepts an input, so you can see a input parameter. The input is called useless input, and I'm passing it pointless value. But really, that's where you will see any inputs that are passed in as far as what you can take action on in that particular node, be it for merge syntax or what have you. You'll also see context and other things in this. So it's a bit disorganized. I shouldn't say that. It's quite well organized. It's a bit confusing from a readability standpoint. Yes, you guys did a good job of organizing the stuff that gets passed in there. And so what you'll also see too is that in this snippet, we've got a few provisions for stuff in the future. Like if we wanted to extend this and give different types of output for particular action types, I figured that might be helpful. So that's why it's a switch that does nothing at this point. That's for future extensibility, and I would really love it if people in the community would dive into Squid Labs, see if there are ways that this can be even more put to even better use and contributed back to, because this has been something that's been useful to us in debugging what's going on and all that. So
Awesome.
yeah.
Thank you, Jarrett. That's fantastic. And yeah, that is up on Squid Labs. So feel free to go grab it and play around with it, and hopefully it's useful to you as well. All right, if you're like me, you're getting a little bit itchy with all the code that is being on the screen. And I think it's time to go back to declarative land. So yeah, right. Yeah. So what does that say?
We've transported to declarative land.
Oh, got it. Got it. Okay, excellent. For this week, we wanted to do a showcase of one of our customers. And she actually specifically wanted to get into, yes, I know code is good. Code is good. Absolutely. It just freaks me out a little bit. Okay, yeah, no, sorry. Back on track. I was talking with Meredith, one of our customers, and she wanted to surface up kind of some red flags, because every week we briefly touch on kind of a red flag, things to watch out for. And this one was specifically around using the file upload component. And I thought it was a great topic, because file management in general is one of those things to watch out for, because it ends up being more complex than you think. So this week we've got Meredith from AEI here. Hello, Meredith. Can you hear us? Let me unmute you. Can we hear you? No.
Okay, yeah, now I can. Now,
There it is. Awesome.
can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, super.
Well, hello, Meredith. Thank you for joining us. Yeah, welcome.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for featuring one of my pet peeves, I guess, or one of my red flags. This is excellent, and I love how you also discovered some more, I guess, limitations or quirks about dealing with documents within Salesforce, because that kind of is almost a segue into this section.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it definitely touched on a number of things that we've been working on. So I threw a fun Windows 95 GIF in there to get us into file. Oh, I'm not. Oh man, you just have to imagine my GIF. This is.
We've all seen 1995.
Yeah. It's been a long time since I saw one of those.
When you get that little like red dot that I think actually doesn't show up because there we go. Yeah.
Yeah. Little explosion, little file explosion.
Right, right. So Meredith, tell us a little about yourself. Where are you at?
Sure. So I guess my official title here at AEI is Technology and Innovation Manager, which is a really fancy way of saying basically I'm an IT project manager. So I work for American Enterprise Institute. So we're a think tank in Washington, D.C. And we've been using Salesforce for about 5 years, and we've been using Skuid for somewhere between 2 and 3 years. And we discovered Skuid when we were trying to find a way, I'd been asked to find a way to build a community website for one of our new entrepreneurial groups. We keep all of the data about our constituents, which includes members of groups like this, and also our events. It's all in Salesforce. So we wanted something that we could connect to Salesforce, and also something that wasn't going to cost a whole lot of money to develop. So we could develop a, WordPress website, which is great, but connecting to Salesforce, that was going to be a bear. So I thought I could use Salesforce communities for it. And you definitely can, but the UI, that was going to be also a very costly and painful experience to try to build out some of the features that we wanted using, Visualforce and Apex. So we found Skuid, and actually, I signed up for a month-long trial of Skuid, and literally within a day or two, I had a website. And it was unbelievable. Now I have a bit of a technical background. Now I didn't go to school for tech, but I've been in IT and I've been a consultant for many, many years. So I have a background. I can do HTML coding. I can do, SQL queries. I can verify whether or not my developers are telling me the truth or not. And I can also review their code, but I don't write a whole lot of code. And I definitely didn't want to, and it's, not my job. But I was able to, produce a proof of concept for this website using Skuid, connected to Salesforce, both, bringing in data and having people update data. Like, we wanted to get their latest contact information. We want them to be able to register for events and other things. And I was able to do it within, literally, it was hours. And one of the big sellers, and basically when I said, okay, where do we sign for the contract for Skuid, was that you have a calendar component. And, writing a calendar component or reusing some, a plugin even for WordPress, that's just going to take a considerable amount of time to bring in the data, the right model and all the fields for the data into something in Apex or something in WordPress, which are the two skills that we have at AEI. But with Skuid, I just pull this component onto my page, and within 10 minutes, I have a calendar page. 10 minutes, it was, it's wonderful. So I have to say, you're not paying me for any of this, but Skuid, you're one of my favorite vendors. I think your product is unbelievable. And it's not just this, the calendar component, it's all of these other features, especially that are featured, in webinars like this. But you're also, I work with so many of you, and your support team probably knows me really, really well because I'm always asking them questions. And everybody at the organization is wonderful. So I'm super happy to be, featured in, one of your webinars, because I try to catch as many as possible. So.
Well, everyone's blushing here. So thank you so much. And I do want to point out, one of the reasons that we started talking about this, though, is because you actually ran into a limitation with the Skuid file upload component.
Yep.
So I thought it would be good for us to talk about that here, see if we could find a solution. And it forced me to dig a little bit deeper because the file upload component is one of these components that has a number of features you may not know about. You kind of have to get into the properties. So let's talk about your specific use case that you ran into. So you're in a community and users are wanting to upload files. What's the use case here?
Yeah, well, we have a couple of use cases where we want to accept files, and some of it is when we reach out for. Now we're actually building our 4th site, and this is where I really wanted to figure out a way to make the file uploads work, because we want to get we want people to be able to upload their headshots. So we have a latest picture of them for a membership directory. And then also we do, especially with our younger members, we support, we'll pay for their transportation to events at AEI, but they need to also provide us with the receipts for their travel. So we need a secure way to accept file uploads. And we have, and also one of the quirks of the way that we handle documents in Salesforce is because we have some sensitive data in our database and we use Salesforce, institute-wide, we've got about 155 users at AEI, and AEI is only about 250 people. So most of the institute is using Salesforce. So we have to have very specific security around any documents that are uploaded, and not just with people who are uploading them from our communities, which are of course external people, but also internally, because we don't lock down specific records. We just lock down fields so that everybody can see all of our constituents, everybody can see all of our events, for example, but not everybody can see, say, a travel receipt that might have the last 4 digits of someone's credit card and that sort of thing. So in this case, we wanted to make sure that we could still use, we have a custom object that is a parent of attachments that gives us a little bit more control over the security of documents as they're uploaded. So one of the things that we weren't able to do, one of the problems and why I'd reached out was that when I was trying to use your file upload component, it was telling me that I needed to save my record first. Like you couldn't even upload a file exactly as what you're showing on your screen. So I reached out to figure out what's a way that we can do, just your basic file upload that people are used to on a web form. But I don't want to show this to our users. I want to perform some magic in the background to be able to use the file upload component in Skuid. But the users have a very simple, they just, click an upload button, are able to upload their headshot, travel receipts, or whatever. And it saves to the record, and and we do the magic in the background.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things, so I dug into this a little bit, and I found 2 possible solutions. One would be to turn it into a 2-step process, which I have to admit makes it a little bit more inefficient, but I do think this is a fairly common UX experience. Because the challenge is that when you go to your page, you're creating that new custom object record when the page loads. And then the way I think part of this is how Salesforce works and part of this is how Skuid works, is that if you want to attach something using Salesforce attachments, that record has to exist, as you found out. And so one way you could do it is to make it a 2-step process where instead of making this just the file upload component, this is actually a button that opens a pop-up that actually saves the record, that new record, so that you can then upload here. And then you can use after close actions on the pop-up to potentially scrub that record if they close it without uploading a file. That's one way you could do it if you're using attachments. And we'll follow up and talk about, see if there's what the best solution might be. The other solution that could be possible would be to use Salesforce's newer content document capability. And the way that we're able to do that is when you use the file upload component, it asks you if you want to connect it to a model. And if you pick a model, it will then force you to choose a couple of different things. So if I say, I want to do it on sales order, I have these options. I have to attach it to that record. But if I don't do a parent model, I have some different options in terms of where that file can be uploaded. I can upload it to Chatter, I can upload it to content document. And so then what you can do is after it gets uploaded in to content document, you can use on upload actions to then go get that file that was just uploaded and connect it to the attachment record in that custom object. Now, like you said, that may not satisfy some of the security requirements that you have. And so look forward to continue talking and maybe we can figure out a good solution there. But content document is a good way of handling attachments in general, and it gives you additional functionality to have many relationships there with those with files and records. So we'll keep talking about it, and hopefully we can find a good solution. But there are a lot of cool things you can do with the file upload component, and we wanted to surface that as a red flag, just because, again, with file management, you're going to run into a lot of different options based on the type of data that you're connecting to, based on the user expectations. And so this is one of those things where if this is a critical requirement, then your antenna should go up and say, all right, we're going to take some time, we're going to do additional discovery, and we realize that it might end up being a more complex solution depending on what we need. So
Yeah.
Thanks for bringing that up, and we'll keep talking about it, and hopefully we'll find something good.
Right. Yeah. No, thank you. This is good. And also I like the way that you can also, you know, this is why I love the Squid product, as you've really thought about, you know, what would you do if I have a file upload? What would I need? I need to be able to restrict it by file type, et cetera. And that's already built in there. And that's always, when I'm always you know, every time I ask, do you have this? A lot of times what you say is, yeah, we've got that feature. But then and then also when I look at the features, all the things that I would ask for are usually there. So thanks so much for helping me with, I know that I have very particular requirements for this. And I think that both of those, we can definitely find a way to do this within Squid. Maybe it's not perfect, but as long as from the user perspective, it's easy for them.
Yeah.
We have to do a little, you know, extra background, as I say, magic. You know, that's fine as long as we can, you know, make it work in the back end.
Yep. Well, we fight for the users. So that's great to hear. Well, Meredith, thank you so much for sharing that with us. That's a great story, and can't wait to hear how things work out there.
Great. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, you got it. All right. So I'm taking us right up to the hour here. Let's breeze through some very important things that do not deserve to be breezed through. Cody, what's going on Squid Labs?
Okay, so we've got two things to highlight this week, or this month, sorry. There's a child/normal page converter, and I can share my screen.
Yeah, go ahead.
And run through that super quick. Share. So,
Squid Labs is meant to be this place where if you have a thing that you see that you want to just build the thing to fix it and not worry if it breaks later, but because it helps now, Squid Labs is the place to do that. So the thing that I was kind of running into is
short-term gratification. Instant gratification.
is that when you are building with master pages and child pages, it's a really great function if you're building out a suite of pages. But say you're working on a project like I did long ago, and you build out all of your pages, and you're like, oh, I want a header up at the top. I should use a master page. Oh no, because you have to build a child page at creation time. You have to say, I'm creating a child page and attach it to a master page.
Or you hack up the XML.
Yes, or you hack up the XML. So I wanted to take away some of that error-prone XML surgery, and I submitted a Squid Labs pull request. It's in the final tweaking stages. Big shout out to Zach McElrath for helping me with some of the final bits here. But also kind of like what Meredith was saying is I wanted it to have a lot of the background magic. So here we have just a normal page. I'm going to convert it. Let me actually show what this looks like. This is just a normal page with a template. It's named Beep. Responsive grids, got nested components. So what I actually want to do is, if I can get this Zoom thing to go away. All right. Go away, Zoom. Okay, here we go. I want it to be a child page to something called master page with regions.
oh man.
So I'm just going to click that. What I want it to be named, and by default, it just appends the page name to the master page's name. You click save, save your new page, and boom, there it is. So
easy.
let's see what that looks like. Oh, and before that, here's what the master page looks like. This is the text within the master page, has a responsive grid with 2 page regions. So what this does is just take all the components from your child page, and it puts it into, for now, the first page region that it can find. So we see here's the text within the master page, here's all the master page stuff.
Okay.
And then within that first page region is all the components from my previously normal page. But say I don't like that and I want to change it back. Let's convert to a normal page. Is emancipated. Save it. Go back to my pages list. check the XML. And hooray, everything's there, but it's not within a master page anymore. That's a very basic demo of it, but I'm sure with,
That is awesome.
yeah, if you've got super crazy pages and you want to flip it back and forth, the only caveat, well, a couple caveats right now, it only works for V1. When you convert to a child page, it always goes to the first page region. You know, if you've got multiple page regions, when you convert from a child page to a normal page, it kind of dumps all of the components linearly down the XML. So you'll have to recreate it using responsive grid if the visual alignment
But
is
I'm
very
in the
important.
composer,
Yes.
and that's
Yeah, so you can drag things around.
That's fantastic.
So future improvements want to maybe look at creating that as a responsive grid instead of, so you can keep some of that visual there. And yeah, that's it.
No,
If anyone
that-
wants to contribute, check it out.
And I'm emotionally invested in that page because you named it Beep.
Yep.
I don't know. I was just like, I was there. Okay, real quick, lightning round.
We're in overtime.
We are in
Stoppage.
overtime, and yeah.
Only the
So
referees know.
very briefly, I want to point out another thing in Squid Labs. There's a lab report on DocuSign integration from Elena O'Neill, and really cool piece there. So please go check that out. I wish I had time to spend more time on it, and that's just my fault. So Elena, thank you for doing some really cool work. Please go check that out if you're working with DocuSign. Okay, real quick, here we go. ProdCon, what's going on?
We have some big updates to docs. If you are interested in the voluntary product accessibility template and the implications of that, we have docs now that support it. So if you are assessing whether or not Skuid is compatible with different access technologies or assistive technologies, you now have a place to go to have to scroll through a table that will give you some of your direct answers. We revamped our keyboard shortcut docs because there's been a lot of improvements, especially in V2, where there's even things like Excel-like scrolling and tabbing, or arrowing and tabbing in tables, and other hotkey features at work. Also reminding you how to set up how to set up hotkeys for things like actions that you might be running. And we recently revamped our model documentation, so there is now an aggregate model case study, which walks you through how to use aggregate models and talks to you about specific ways to use things like the groupings, conditions, and filters. So it's pretty comprehensive. And filters is getting a revamp too, because there's a lot of great material out there on filters, and we wanted to combine it all in one place to make it easier for you to browse and discover the dark arts of filtering.
All right. Awesome. Very cool. Thank you. All right, Jay, what's happening in product?
Real quick, it's like I said earlier, it's a fairly short update, but the 12.2 Salesforce, Skuid for Salesforce release is set to go out this week.
All right.
And I'm expecting it to be, I shouldn't do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. I'm expecting it to be tomorrow morning. But please don't kill me if that. No, it'll probably be tomorrow. See the release notes.
We'll dox you and send everyone your
Are now.
They're
They're up
available
now.
They're up now.
Man, awesome.
On docs.squid.com.
All right.
Good
Okay.
releases.
We will do one more 12.1 patch before retiring support for 12.1. We do this with every minor release, but I wanted to call that out. Once 12.2 is out, it will be the currently supported version of support.
All right. Last thing, Rob, what's coming with the admin app?
Yeah, so Skuid has a whole bunch of pages around the page composer, the design system studio. All of those happen to be Skuid pages, like built-in Skuid. We dog food our own products, pretty cool. And so those pages, there are pages that go back all the way to the beginning, and it's time for like a facelift. On unifying the design experience, we got some really strong designers in the house, been helping us out with that. We've also recognized on platform that many people try to use platform and they have a hard time finding data sources, and they have a hard time setting up their data sources. So we need to make that more efficient. And also we need to simplify the way apps are created on platform. And then we have this new thing called Page API V2. So let's kick the tires on that bad boy. So awesome. we've got all of the platform admin app pages have been revamped, and we're targeting releasing those at the end of this month. And then we will turn and put all of that work in Salesforce. Hopefully be able to show some stuff off at Dreamforce. Okay. So I don't know how long the Pierre the Frog would let me go, but you want me to show some pages, or do we want to call it a day?
Do one page.
One page.
Let's do it.
So
Okay.
share my
Yep,
screen,
yep.
and it will take.
And while he's doing this, I'm going to put a link in the chat there. If you haven't yet, please let us know how we're doing. There's a Nautilus Notes feedback survey.
Yeah. Yeah. So in the room, now I lost my context. Okay, can you see
Yes.
this?
Yes.
So
There you
yeah,
go.
so here we go. So consistent theme throughout. You'll see data sources now have its own special place at the top of our central information for you to go see. Come on, load. I'm on a dial-up connection here. I apologize. Super sweet things like we want to create a data source. Let's create a Salesforce data source. It should be easy. There's really only three pieces of information you need on platform to create a Salesforce data source, but we were walking you through like 3 or 4 step process.
Awesome.
But now really all you need is just these 3 pieces of information to create a Salesforce data source.
All right.
Dun, dun, dun. So there you go.
Okay, we're going to need to get some more on that next one.
Yeah, so expect to see this in your platform org, hopefully by the beginning of October,
Awesome.
and then see it quickly following in Salesforce. And there you go.
Very cool.
Sneak peek.
Man, awesome. Guys, great stuff. Thank you everyone for joining us. Sorry for keeping you over a little bit. We've got an angry dev team that actually they don't look angry. They look great out there. They need this room, but we'll still apologize profusely. Thank you everyone again for joining us. We love doing this. We'll do another one hopefully next month. We'll see y'all. Bye.
Bye.